Right now, episode 67 on the flip side.
Living your best life is not what you think.
You need to get yourself a mentor.
And there's a whole bunch of people in your life that you have conflict with. I'm going to tell you what to do with that list of unresolved relationships. Right now, the flip side, everyone. Here. Hello and welcome to the flip side. It's 2020, everyone, and we're starting the flip side strong with, of course, one of our favorites, Jordanna Sadri, here in charge of our missions department, Mexicali, all sorts of things at Bayside. And then, ta-da, for the first time ever,
we can say
on the flip side, we have the senior co-pastor of our Adventure Campus, Michael Metcalf. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you.
Glad you're here, my friend.
Excited to be here. Super excited to be here.
Is this second time?
Oh, he did it with Jason and Derek.
First time with me. Keep all this rolling.
It's the real flip side.
Let it be known that I don't. When Jason takes over, I don't watch the episodes so closely.
We're saying that you're the adventure. Yeah, you're
very first time.
Yeah.
My first time being on the show with you, which is the only thing that matters, Jason.
Exactly.
But I'm so happy here. Give us a little. How you doing? You've settled. You moved. Have you found a place? Where are you at in the making the transition?
Doing good. So we are moved in. We got here November 15th.
Wow.
So that's just a little over 2 months now, and we're in our house. I don't know if we're settled. I think that'll take a couple years.
Awesome.
But my kid's here, my wife's here, and we're just making our way.
Who's here with you?
My kid and my wife, Michelle Metcalf.
Michelle.
The love of my life.
By the way, your kid's sitting right there.
He's right over there.
He's right there.
Chandler's here with me.
Chandler, how you doing, my man? We might have to have you come on camera in a second. So be ready, Chandler. If you come in the room, you're fair game. Not only have you made the trend, you were preaching this week at Adventure. We did a sermon on Peter in John 21. It's one of my favorite passages, the passage where Jesus spends the last few moments of his life cooking for the disciples. He asked Peter this incredible question, do you love me, over and over again, the different Greek forms of love. Peter was like, I love you. And then he, of course, has the most incredible line. He said, if you love me, demonstrate, feed my sheep. Mm-hmm. And we use that as our anchoring point for really looking at the decisions that we're going to make in 2020. One of our bylines is simply this: new year won't make you a new person, new decisions will. This is a fresh start for Peter, fresh decisions for Peter. Jesus leads him into these fresh decisions. And you had a great line about regret.
I said, let's choose reset over regret.
That's so powerful. And I think so many people spend much of their life in their headspace in regret. You make a mistake, that's one thing. But when you make a regret, that's like a cancer of the mind, going, I should have, I could have, I would have. Let's let that go all under the bridge and get a reset going. So I got some questions around our main points here. The main points for this weekend, hopefully you saw the sermons, you were there at one of the campuses. Begin with grace. Jesus has grace towards Peter. Then secondly, invest in relationships. Jesus exhorts Peter. They're eating together and he exhorts him to feed the sheep. And then, of course, start serving. Jesus says, feed my sheep. Get in there. Don't overcome this mistake and actually get in there. So here's just right into it. The very first thing in terms of invest relationships. A lot of people will tell you, get a coach, get a mentor. Like when I think about investing in relationships, I don't want to just be that sort of like, I made a new friend. I want to actually develop. The problem is it's harder to get someone to invest into you to actually make a relationship work that's developmental. So in your experience, how do you actually recruit a coach? How do you get a mentor in your life? And I'll give you a second to think about your answer.
Yeah.
While my fine...
But first, coffee.
Serena, come on, Serena.
While Serena tells us what we're drinking for coffee here on the flip side.
We have some beans from Portola Coffee Roasters that Haley actually picked up for you guys from SoCal.
Wow.
So feels special,
Wow.
It has flavor notes of nougat, mixed berries, and floral.
Nougat.
She said flavor notes.
It's flavor
Flavor
notes.
notes,
That's
yes.
the language here on the...
So like take a good whiff and then take a little sip.
Man.
Yeah.
Wow. All right.
Trying to find the nougat in there.
I found it.
Do you find it?
I found
You
it.
have a more sensitive palate than me.
I found it. I definitely.
Here's the problem with me finding the nougat. I'm not even sure what nougat actually tastes like because I haven't had a piece of candy in like 5 years.
Yeah.
It's definitely in there.
All right, that's good. It's good coffee, and I need it this afternoon. So, okay, give me some
Yeah.
advice.
How do we
do you
get a
find a
mentor?
coach? Who wants to go first?
Yeah, I'll start. My husband and I, every New Year, we sit down and we actually look at what relationships we had in the year past and actually make a list of who, to specific names even, of who we want to have on the calendar and who we want to be in relationship with. And it's people that are going to make us better individually, make our family better. But one thing that happened last year was my husband was actually looking for a mentor. He's like, I need someone who's going to invest in me in these areas. And we made a list of 5 men that we both went, yeah, it would be great if this person had the time and was willing. And so he asked them if he could have coffee with them, a couple of folks. Went out to coffee with 4 or 5 different men and then said, oh, would you have the time? And it's funny sometimes because you do, in a way, when you're looking for someone to invest in you, you feel like you're, going out on dates with these folks and going, do you like me? Do I like you? Do we, do we get along? Do we like
Everyone
having
likes
coffee
Alex.
with nougat? I know everyone does love my husband.
Everyone
He's
likes Alex.
fantastic. And so that was how
Here's what I like
it
what
worked
you're
for
saying.
him.
You're saying, first of all, do a relationship audit. It's funny, people audit their finances, they'll get a financial
Yeah.
advisor, they'll look at their budget, but the quality that actually impacts their life much more than almost anything else they own or possess, their relationships, they want to audit that. That's really cool that you guys actually write it down.
And being really intentional about,
Yes.
and looking at the calendar, because when you spend time with, people, you're not spending time with other people. So, and it works that way for a mentor, and then the flip side too of who do we want to be, investing in as well.
Exactly.
So if someone comes to me and says, "Hey, Jordanna, I want you to mentor me," you ask some questions. Well, what does that look like? What is that?
Yes.
What are you wanting to get from that? And if you are looking for a mentor, just have it in your mind specifically what that would be, especially if it's a real life person, not a author or podcast.
Michael,
guy
what would you
or
throw in there? What would you throw
So
in there?
it's interesting because we don't do it regularly. Matter of fact, the first time we've ever done it during this transition, my wife and I, probably 2-3 weeks ago, we started saying, what are the areas that we know are going to be difficult? Like during a transition, everything's uprooted, turned upside down. And what are the areas that we're going to need some support in? It's going to take some while to build deep relationships here. And so what we actually did is we made a list of a few people a few years back in our life. One of them is Dr. Kim Kimberly. He's a pastor, he's a coach, he's a mentor, and he's a close friend of ours. And he lives all the way in Oklahoma. And we said, we're going to call Dr. Kim and his wife, and just weekly we're going to Skype, touch base. They know our story. They know what's going on in our life. But we're going to need that relational support.
They're an objective third party. They're kind of
give us perspective, insight, wisdom, challenges.
So again, you're being very deliberate. You kind of did an audit, yes, and you're doing it kind of in the anticipation of where the challenges are. Let's get ahead of the challenges. I love that.
Right.
What you both have in common is that it takes an ask, though.
Yeah.
A lot of times we'll go, especially when I'll be mentoring Thrive students, and they'll go, no one's really developing me, and I'm like, who have you asked? Well, I just thought they would come to me and go, do you know what?
I'm just gonna
I
walk
wanna mentor
around
you.
and someone's
I
gonna
just
mentor
took
me.
3 things off my plate for you. So I had a student come to me, second year Thrive student, going to be a youth pastor, great kid. And he said, man, I've really been challenged by what you've been talking to us in Thrive School. And he goes, I need someone to talk these things over with to go to the next level. You're really right. I need to kind of get more actually honest about how to apply this model, because would you mentor me? And I said, how many times a month are you thinking? He goes, twice a month. And I said, okay, I could do that if you find 3 other guys that are in the same leadership place you're in.
That's good.
And you guys come with the next 3 times we meet's worth of questions ahead of time. And if you get that prepared, I'll find an hour for 3 of you.
That's good.
And the next day, man, he's right at my admin thing, and we're going to on the calendar. There was an ask there that he did, and then I came back with a limiter of going,
Because if he didn't come back to you, you'd go, this guy's not even that serious, right? So
100%.
I'll tell people, when do you want to meet? Well, I can't do it on this day. I can't do it on that. Well, then do you really want? Do you really want it?
And I encourage people, like, all the people you really want to meet with are too busy to meet with you. All the people that you,
right.
and this guy in my life, Dr. Earl Krups, incredible guy,
Sure.
2 different PhDs. He's pastoring the church I'm going to at the time. And he's on the board at AGTS, he's all this stuff. And I knew I needed a mentor. It was a similar thing. I just made a transition. I knew there's parts of this job that I needed to get a handle on, and I needed an objective third party to help me do it. And I couldn't find anyone. I thought, I'm just going to ask the guy I really want to do it.
Yeah.
And so I went up to him, I said, here's my thing, Dr. Krups. 1 hour, once a month, I buy lunch, I come with one question.
That's good.
We do it for 3 months. If you want to keep going, we keep going.
Yeah.
If you don't want to keep going, I will be grateful my whole life.
That's good.
We met every month for the next 3 years.
Yeah.
But there's something about me going, one question,
Start and
1
end.
hour.
Yeah.
Hey, let's do this for 8 weeks, and then if it's all right, then we're done. And
Okay,
we
so let
learned.
me then just take this down. Who's actually mentoring you right now, Jordanna? Who's the biggest mentor in your life?
Yeah, I'd say the
He's
biggest.
got Pastor Kim.
Dr. Kim Kimberly.
Dr.
Yeah.
Kim Kimberly. Okay,
Yeah.
I remember the 2 Kims.
Yeah,
close.
I would say that my biggest mentor in my life right now is Carol Johnston. So she's fantastic. We meet regularly. She'll challenge me if there's a story that I'm sharing about something that's gone on with our family or in my marriage. She'll sit, she'll listen, and then she'll ask the hard question, or she will straight up tell me, like, you need to apologize, or you need to go at it.
Can I just be honest with you? I would
please.
never have Carol Johnson be my mentor.
Oh, really?
Never. You
Yeah,
want to know why?
because you'd be apologizing also.
She's way too spiritual.
Yeah.
She really
Yeah.
knows Christ. Like, she
Yeah.
reads her Bible every day. I know
Yeah.
this for sure.
Yeah, she does. Yeah, she does. But that's if you.
I'd be a way better person, but I'm a little.
But I'll say one
I've got
of the
Andrew
things,
McCourt in my life. That's just enough.
one of the things that I would say as far as mentors go in my life, and I think you were getting to this place, Michael, is that it's not necessarily, sometimes we get in our mind it's going to be this one person.
Yes,
And it's
that's
this
very good,
one
Jordanna.
person, and we
Yeah.
pedestal this one person, and they're
Yeah.
going to help me spiritually, they're going to help me with my, mental health, emotionally, they're going to help me with my family, they're going to be like, and it's not ever one person. So
Yeah.
so I tend to have multiple folks that I will go to. I mean, there's a great, mentor that I would go to for parenting advice. I would, work advice, different
Totally.
kind of mentor relationships. I mean, Carol.
Also,
is the
not
guru of everything,
not every mentoring moment happens. Like, we always want it to be like Karate Kid. We
Sure.
sitting down and what's his name, Daniel
Mr.
San
Miyagi.
and Mr. Miyagi is
Come on.
teaching him directly. It's
Pat
not always
Morita.
like that. It's walking into a room and going, Michael Metcalf's in this room, Jordanna Sadri's in this room, Ray Johnson's in this room. I'm going to shift my attitude from a leader to a learner right now, and have contact mentoring happen in my life, and being aware in the seasons when you need to do that. There are some seasons you need to lead, but there's a lot of seasons where you go, I need to listen and learn
Yeah, that's good.
here. And sometimes Ray will say things in a meeting, and I'll go, I'm not sure what he's getting at with that. But before I have a reaction and go, I don't agree, or I do agree, or this, that, I need to actually look at what he said more carefully. And I'll go, I learn more by taking that little pause, thinking it through a little bit more than any sort of interaction where I would say, like, Ray, let's go out to lunch over tacos, give me your 6 principles or anything. It's just like watching him lead in the moment actually produces more mentoring
Yeah,
in my
That's
life.
really good.
Yeah.
It's having that posture all the time.
That is, yeah.
That's good.
All right, invest in relationships. That's the first one. Let's go back to, actually, I got them out of order, but I like starting there. Let's go with begin with grace.
Yeah.
And I've flipped these a little bit because this one's a little emotional. Peter denies Christ. It's a brutal denial.
Big time.
Yeah.
It's a denial that results in Peter saving his skin and Christ being crucified. I mean, you take the biggest betrayal that you can happen, divorce, lifelong friends, and none of it matches to the emotional content of this. And yet, the first interaction they have that's personal, that's intimate, that's conversational after the resurrection, Jesus serves him and cooks, asks him questions, and never brings up the past specifically. It's the subcontext. But Jesus doesn't start with, Okay, let's talk about that chicken rooster crowing thing. Let's talk. Jesus
Remember I
never
told you?
has his day in court where he gets the satisfaction of Peter looking him right in the eye and going, I blew it.
Yeah.
You knew I was going to blow it. I blew it not admitting I was going to blow it.
Yeah.
And Jesus never, he doesn't need that moment.
Yeah.
He forgives and repositions Peter for the future. Now, here's what I'm asking you, Pastor Michael, Pastor Jordanna. When people come to you with the hurt, the tough one, and they go, I know I should forgive, but I'm finding it difficult to forgive, what do you tell them?
Me first.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Man, to be honest, I was so excited to preach this message this weekend because, one, this is my life. Like, I am Peter, right? And so for me, when people come to me and ask that question, first thing I do is give them permission to feel, because it's a wound. It's pain, right? Give them permission. I give you permission right now to feel hurt, to feel wounded. You have permission to be angry. You have permission to be ticked off. I give you permission.
Yeah.
However, if you are a Christ follower,
Yes.
there's a difference between feeling the pain,
Yes.
feeling the betrayal, and forgiveness. We are commanded to forgive.
Yes.
And you're holding on to that is not making it any better. You're just wounding yourself. I mean, I don't know how many, there's how many one-liners about forgiveness, right?
Right.
But the truth is, I give permission to feel the pain, permission to feel the disappointment.
Very good, Michael.
Permission to be in the heartache.
Yes.
But there is not room to not forgive.
Yeah.
Yes.
Grace is how we lead.
Forgive as you have been forgiven.
Exactly.
If you've received the life-giving, eternal gift of forgiveness, the response is to forgive.
Every time.
But it can be hard. I love that about giving people permission to feel. Forgiveness does not mean that the wound isn't deep and hard and horrible.
Yeah.
So
I think when I was at Granite Bay, but I watched your message.
Thank you.
Double dip.
Because you're a little
Double
refuel, and you just said, my life was Peter. And I can remember really distinctly a time in my life, I was in college, and I felt like I was having a Peter moment. I had just been making some not so wise choices, and I read a Devo about the response of Peter and then the response of Judas, and the two different directions those two disciples went.
Yeah.
I think the biggest struggle for me in that season, in that moment, and even coming into 2020 and looking back at 2019 and going, I don't want to have regret, is almost even allowing myself to receive that grace and forgiving myself. Amen. And I think that was probably a really huge moment for Peter is, am I going to receive this? Judas could not, right? And took himself out of the game.
This is an incredible point, and it's a really old book, Love, Acceptance, Forgiveness, by Jerry Cook.
Yeah.
He tells a story of a couple that's in crisis. The husband is just harsh and mean and unforgiving, and he's a pastor. And they come to Jerry for marriage counseling, and they start getting into it, and it turns out that this man's a Vietnam vet, and in the crisis and loneliness and violence of being a chaplain in a war zone, he had broken his marital vows. He never told anyone, never confessed the sin. Now, you think you have secret sin, that would make you more compassionate to people that have sin. But actually what happens is that internal conflict creates condemnation. His lack of accepting forgiveness from Christ and being cleansed made him a condemning person. And when that came out, and then the wife forgave him, and his children forgave him, and his pastor forgave him, he found just new grace and new love and new acceptance for everyone around him. I think it's really true, Jordanna. It really starts with our understanding of how much God loves us in our sin, why we were yet still sinners, he died for us, how much he's forgiven us, how much fragile he understands we are, how broken we are personally makes it easier to tolerate the fact that the world's a very broken place too. But there's one more thing on this all. I always tell people, there's a difference between forgiveness and trust.
That's true.
And in fact, forgiveness is about deciding who you trust. Forgiveness is saying, I trust Jesus to forgive this person that hurt me, redeem this person that hurt me, punish this person that hurt me. I trust Jesus with all of that. I trust Jesus. It doesn't mean you necessarily trust them. My dad left when we were 5, and it's the classic story. I just grew up with all the angst of going, why did he leave us? Why did he leave us? Became a Christian, good, solid men in my life. First issue they went after, you got to forgive your dad. So I'm, 18, 19 years old. I forgive him. I trust you, God. Fast forward to my first child. Jesse, literally put Jesse in my arms. My first experience was euphoria. My second experience was anger. It's like, well, how could you leave this, Dad? And I can remember I was like,
Yeah.
and it took me about 6 months to go, he couldn't give what he didn't have. The hurt that was in his father's life went to his life. I'm going to be and I forgave him. And I was great until Madeline came 5 years later.
Yeah.
Same thing, yeah.
And it took me about 3 months.
Yeah.
And with Emma 4 years later, it took me about 3 weeks. And what I learned is forgiveness to me was a process of how long it took me to go back and saying, I trust you, Father,
Right.
God. And the length it took me to go, he's not my responsibility. He's your responsibility. And I forgive him and release him. That doesn't mean I trust him.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that I approve of him.
Right.
And it was not a one event for me.
Yeah.
I'm sure when my first grandchild comes,
Yeah.
probably be an hour of prayer in there. Maybe maybe 90 minutes. Okay.
Yeah.
But it is about wrestling with those very strong emotions, and then eventually trusting Christ.
Yeah, that's good.
I think that people don't realize it is a process. Oftentimes they think, well, how can I forgive them? It's a process.
Yes.
It's so important to understand that this is not going to happen overnight.
Yes.
Maybe months, weeks, years, like you said.
Yeah.
That's a big
And
deal.
every scenario is different. So some people are asking for our forgiveness. Others, we need to forgive them, but they're not even
asking.
admitting a wrong, right? So they're not
So
even
true.
realizing
Yeah.
the hurt. But if we let that bitterness take root, and that's where then it, like you said, Michael, it's hurting us.
I would say this statement: most people invest in strategy to make their life better. I want a better do-it-yourself plan. I want a better life hack. I want a better book. I want a better. And what they really need to do is invest in strength, not strategy. And one of the things that saps our strength the most is unresolved relationship, unforgiveness. I just, your little exhortation to write down all the relationships in your life. I wonder if the exhortation in this category is to go, I'm just going to make a list of who do I have unresolved conflict with.
Good.
And can I just start 2020 and go, you know what? Half these, I don't even need to have a conversation with them. I'm just going to forgive.
Yeah.
I'm going to let the grace of God rule my response. I'm going to be just like Jesus. I don't need the courtroom resolution. I'm going to move on and move forward. I'm going to think the best of them. I'm going to love them. I'm going to give them permission to be a broken person because I'm a broken person, and I'm going to make a choice. Forgive and love.
That's good.
So.
That's good.
All right, let's go on to the last one. So we have invest in relationships. It's about finding a coach. It's about finding developmental relationships in our life. We have begin with grace. It's about finding forgiveness. And the last one is start serving. And I want to talk a little bit more from a leadership angle on this one. So what I've discovered as a parent, getting my kids to have the heart of a servant that my wife has is very difficult. My wife is such an incredible servant. They don't need to be one. I mean, she is just, you know her.
Yeah.
She will just do it all
She
for
will.
everyone with a bow and love them. And I just thought, a lot of times I find myself going, I shouldn't have to ask you to do this stuff. It's the same thing with coworkers.
Yeah.
Like I'm going, how do I get the best out of people? And then for pastors, it's really, and I don't know if you're a pastor or just a business leader out there, making the appeal to service. We do it almost every single week. And yet still the same 20% seem to be the ones that are doing all the work. So whether it be motivating your family or motivating your coworkers or motivating your church, how do you actually overcome the obstacles to get people serving?
Yeah, I mean, a big part of getting folks to even think about serving is back to the ask. I think sometimes as pastors, as leaders, we throw out a blanket statement, hey, you should go on this really awesome trip to Mexico over spring break and serve. It'll be fun. But it's until hey, Michael, you know what? We could really use an awesome adult male dad to be on this team with these incredible high school students? Would you consider taking a week of vacation and investing in them and, looking Michael in the eye and asking him to serve?
So if you're listening to this, you just need to know, this isn't just theory with Jordanna. No, you're the best at this. You really are. There are so many high caliber people in Mexico, because you've sat across a table with them and taken the time to one-on-one do this. And I know this about you. When you ask, you kind of don't pull punches. You don't go, you might want to consider this. You look at them and go, we need this. Why wouldn't you do it?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, because I think you're living your best life when you're serving other people.
Yeah.
So when I ask someone to consider going on a mission trip or going to Mexico or helping with Serve Day, it's because I know it's not only going to benefit the people that they're serving, it's going to benefit them, but ultimately it's going to move them closer to Christ and down the path of discipleship and becoming more like him, because that's basically what...
I think sometimes leaders go, I'll take anyone I can get and I'll be God honoring with them and I'll develop them. Jordanna, you always go, that guy is at the top of his company. I want him to run my base camp.
Yeah.
And I always look at him and going, how did you get this top executive to run the kitchen and the tents over here?
Yeah.
But I think that's part of the secret, though, because once you have a guy like, I'm talking about John Weston right now, once you have a guy like John, other people want to serve when they have an experience with John.
John Weston is the best. But a big part of it is relationship, which is, another one of the points from the sermon. But it's when you are in relationship with folks, when you do have fun being together and serving together. I'm not just asking Michael to come and do something that's just going to be miserable.
Right.
It's going to be a great time, and not without its challenges, not without, some funky stuff probably in the middle of that week, right? But it's gonna be fun. We're gonna enjoy it, and I think when you're around people that are just...
I'm sorry, just saying so much is inspiring. But I would say, so what leaders want to do is they want to go and go, here's the vision, here's the results, help me serve. And what you just said is, it's actually, I love you, I'm your friend, I care about you, help me serve. This is when Jesus says, feed my sheep to Peter. It's not a 3 concentric circle, graph of growth, statistics outward. It's 3.5 years of camping together where Peter hears the weight of how much Jesus has loved him over those 3.5 years. It's the relational credibility that Christ has stored up that have the power. You almost get this image of Jesus going, one day I'm going to look at Peter in the right moment, right in the eye, and tell him to feed my sheep. But it's not going to be year 1 or year 2 or year 3. It might even be after a big failure. I mean, he's waiting for that relational moment to do the ask. All right, I've said enough. Michael, how do you get people to serve?
I was in an interview one time, and...
Was I in that interview too? Okay, good.
A different interview.
Okay, good.
And we were talking about the same thing. And I had a simple statement. Everybody kind of laughed at me, and they kept saying, well, what more? They were asking me, how did you get so many people to volunteer at the past church? And I said, everybody wants to change the world. Everyone wants to change the world. Well, that seems like a big grandiose statement. But I truly believe on the inside of us, all of us want to make a difference.
We want our lives to be significant.
We want to matter. And we want to be able to look back and say, I invested in this. I did that. I helped that person. So whenever I'm leading someone to serve, after the relationship, after the investment, it's really about, think of the difference that you're going to make. You're going to look back weeks, years, months from now, and that kid's going to be different. That ministry area is going to be different. That trip to Mexicali is going to be different. So people are going to be different because of you. Because of your investment. And the other thing I think we missed often, at least for me, I think we miss that all of our challenges, the things that make us up, the good, the bad, that is gold.
The
reason I want to talk to Dr. Kim Kimberling is because I know the stuff he and his wife have traveled through, have navigated through successfully.
Right.
Oh my goodness. So when we have all that stuff inside of it, it is gold. When I'm saying, hey, let's come do this together. Jump in. You're going to invest your life into something meaningful. Everybody wants to do that.
Again, the serving results in the contact mentoring. I have found when I try to ask people, we need you, we need you, we need you, I get a certain level of response. I mean, when I say, I just messed that up. Roll the tape back.
Yeah.
When we say, you need this, you need this, you need this, I get a certain level of response. When I look at them and say, we need you,
Yeah.
what you have.
Yeah.
So if I say, come to the retreat, we have a good speaker, you'll enjoy what he has to say or she has to say, I get a certain level of response. When I say, if you don't come to this retreat,
So good.
do you know how many guys are not going to get a rub shoulders with Michael Metcalf, man? We need you. And I'll get another level. I heard this first from a guy named Steve Shadrack. I don't know who he got it from. He might have thought of himself. He's a brilliant fundraiser. But he said, when you're recruiting people, there's 3 stages to it. And I've used this with volunteers. I've used this with giving. I've used this with my kids doing the dishes, literally with my kids doing the dishes. He said, first stage is you have to actually say the problem. You have to say the problem. And Christians skip the problem. We want to go right to solution, positive, good, hallelujah, God's got the victory. He said, when you state a problem, first of all, if you don't know the problem yourself, why are you asking someone to volunteer in that area?
Yeah.
What are you trying to solve? Is there a real problem there? Are you just wasting people's time? And then when you say the problem, afterwards, people should look at you and go, that should not be.
Yeah.
And if you're not asking people to serve at that should not be level,
That's good.
then it's not worth their time. Then he said, you got to go to the solution. And the solution should be practical, should be smart, should be time tested. And after they hear your solution, they should say, that just might work. And he said this, he said, if you haven't thought your solution through to something that actually might work, what are you calling people to spend their time on it? I think leaders, we don't think through the problem and solution clear enough. And then this is the genius part. He said, then you have to ask them straight up for a yes or no.
Yeah.
And shut up. Will you give me this year in Mexico?
Yeah.
Yes or no? He said, the problem with us is we're embarrassed to ask people to come up to the level of service. So when we get to that point, we always interject. And then this is what he says is so genius. We speak over the Holy Spirit.
Oh, yeah.
And if you'll just be quiet, you'll ask that
We're
yes or
preaching
no.
on it? I didn't know
come
we
on.
were
And
gonna be
then-
preaching.
Oh, bro.
Come
Yeah.
on now. Okay.
Bringing the content to the flip side.
okay.
Haley's going, the preaching's good, but now we're over 30 minutes. All right, problem, solution, your part. That's the way you get someone. Hey, find a mentor, invest in a relationship, forgive someone. Let the water go under the bridge, be like Jesus. And finally, man, jump in. We need you and everything you have to bring. And by the way, one of the ways we need you is to like and subscribe and to follow and to comment, just to share what's happening on the flip side. The vision of the flip side is that we not just hear a sermon on the weekend, that we learn to incorporate the truth of God in our life every single day. Would you think 3 or 4 people just to spread this to and go, hey, I want you to take a half an hour, listen to this, and let's walk out the truth of God in our day-to-day life. Thanks for tuning in, and thanks for sharing.